And we are back with Mr. Paul Gilbert. Again, thank you so much for being here, Paul. I came across this Behold electric guitar and everything about it, I can't get enough of it. I can't go deep enough into it. So I want to share some of that with my audience. I want them to understand why it moved me so deeply, and have you kind of give us all what it meant to you. And you know.
Well, here we are on one side of the record. We're on the it's done side and somebody likes it side. You know, there was you go back in time and there's the it's not done, and I have no idea if anybody's gonna like it, and I'm not even sure if I like it. So at the beginning of every record, there's a certain amount of fear, and the nice thing about the process of Behold Electric Guitar was that I was doing it with a company that they hadn't gone south yet, called Pledge Music, and it allowed me to have pretty good communication with listeners or people who were pledging, to support the record. And I would basically, with these videos that I made for Pledge Music, I would share a seed of the song. And I almost wouldn't commit to it. It'd be like, I'm working on this thing, I actually think it's pretty cool, but it's not really finished yet. And I would sort of just present a little blueprint of the tune. And then, fortunately, I got good feedback to just about everything. And you wouldn't believe how inspiring that was. Because in the old days, Racer X, Mr. Big, you go into the studio and you're alone. And the only people who hear the music is you, the band, the producer, maybe some family members, but it's really a small little cluster of people who are listening to it. And you put more and more work into it, and you start to get really terrified, because you start to lose your objectivity. Like, I'm not sure if anybody's going to like this, and we've worked on it so much. And then there's that moment when the world hears it, and there's such a tension build up, and it breaks up bands, because everybody's so out of their minds, worried if they're gonna accept your new child that you birth. And the process of Pledge Music, unfortunately, it turned out to be a big scam, and they didn't pay anybody. But the actual process was great, because I could, and it was. I didn't know that it would be that way, because you're usually you don't even want to play it to the record company. It's like, no, you can't hear it until it's been mastered and everything's perfect, and then we can play it. And this wasn't like that at all. This was like, I'm playing you the raw stuff, and it's not finished, and it's not mastered, and it's not mixed, and it's just like an idea. And but in a way, to have a little bit of feedback and a little bit of support from the listeners at that stage of it, that was a brand new thing. That never happened before. That's always the secretive part. And to be able to be open and communicative and connect during that part of the process was wonderful. And I don't know if that's, again, Pledge Music is turned to dust. So I don't know if that's going to happen again. But it really, I really enjoyed it, and it really helped shape the record in terms of just me being, not being the usual insane worrier that I think every musician is in the studio.
I love that you, and if I read correctly, please correct me if I'm wrong, you originally had the idea to do either one or a couple of mics in the center of the room to most accurately capture a live, like a person sitting in the middle of the room listening to this.
Yeah.
And that kind of turned into the best, secondary that you could do would be that the band at least played everything one take live. So all of those videos that we're watching, those are the actual recordings that we listened to on that final product, correct?
Well, the one song that was totally live was Blues for Rabbit.
Okay.
The other ones, like for example, I Own a Building, that was a couple takes put together, and then the video editor did his best to take those takes. He was filming the whole thing,
Okay.
So you might see like a little out of sync thing once in a while, because if he didn't find the right take and match it up, that could happen.
I've watched it a million times. I can't tell that, but now that you've told me, I'm going to go see if my eagle eye can catch it. But he did a great job.
Yeah, he did a really good job.
I've watched it a million times, and I thought it was one solid take all the way through. And even if it was more than one, I know you played it perfectly every time. That's amazing.
Well, just did my best. It was, I mean, one of my memories of that record is I was really sleep deprived. Because I would get home and be a dad, because I have a young son, and I would, my dad duties did not stop with making the album. So I'd come home and have to put him to bed, give him his bath, read him a bedtime story, and then, and of course I'm trying to remember these brand new songs, and it was just, I was barely, my brain was really working at its maximum capacity, because I was so sleep deprived and dealing with, trying to remember, licks like that, and, telling, guiding the band and being the co-producer and all this stuff. And so I was just like, and also having the first drummer like collapse in the middle of a session, and the paramedics had to come and take him to the hospital, and I had to find a new drummer the same day. Just like.
Now I'm curious, because I've read a little bit about that as well.
Yeah.
Is he the first gentleman? Is he the one that plays on Blues for Rabbit?
Yeah, but Brian Foxworth, and man, I love playing with him so much, and his groove was so great.
His groove is so incredible. Is he okay now?
Yeah, he's doing fine.
Okay.
And I think what happened, I don't think, is he didn't know me. And I just moved to Portland, and I just tried to find, the best musicians I could find in the area. And so, he's in his world of like blues and soul and jazz, which is why I was interested in playing with him. But I'm not a figure in that world. So I'm kind of an outsider. And I called him up, and I think, like, I don't think he took me all that seriously. And I was planning the record, months before. And so I asked him, I said, hold these dates, to do the record. And he agreed. He's like, okay, but when it got closer, I contacted him and said, just wanted to make sure you're still good. And he's like, oh, I booked gigs then. And I said, well, do you think, I said, my sessions are like in the morning and afternoon, and we're going to quit it at around 5 or 6 every day. So I said, do you think you can still do it? And he was like, yeah, I think I can do it. But when it turned out, it was just exhausting for him, because, my sessions were pretty intense. And then he'd go do his gig at night, and he wasn't getting any sleep. And so, and drums, that's like a real job, you're moving, I got to move my little fingers. So it's I can be dead tired, and at least I can, I'm not like physically being taxed that much. And so, one day I think it was day 3, he showed up for the session, and just boop, down on the floor he went.
Wow.
So, after that we had, and I had already booked, like, for the Pledge Music thing, there were VIP guys that had paid a lot of money to come in and watch the session. So I was like, man, I gotta keep it rolling. And plus I was on a deadline. So we found another drummer that day to come in, and he did a couple tunes, and then his schedule only allowed him to come in a couple days. So I found the third drummer. So all that was going on. So basically it was like just this close to the whole thing exploding the entire time, which wasn't particularly pleasant, but it did give it an energy. And a lot of times, that's the way it works sometimes. It's like when you're right just on the edge, and just every part of you is just being. I can kind of feel that.
I can kind of feel that in the outtakes, like as you're walking into the booth, and that relief, like after you get done with I Own a Building, for example, and of course I can see the confidence that you knew you nailed it, but it almost looked like I could just feel that collective, man, and and knowing from the backside a little bit, I've recorded as well, and it's always some kind of nightmare. But do you have a favorite off of Behold Yourself?
Well, first I have to tell you my metaphor.
Okay, please.
Which, like, doing the improvising the solos for the whole album, for each song in that album, was about the same mindset as like fighting a bear. Where it's just like you know you're going to lose because it's stronger than you, but still you're just trying with every ounce of energy that you have, and that was what improvising was like. It's just like fighting a bear, and anytime when I could survive was a happy moment.
Well,
Favorite tune.
I saw the bear fight, okay, and you came out on top, okay. You won that one. You told me one time, you said, hey, don't go too deep. Give it a year. You'll be much happier with things you thought you weren't. And I think that's one of the best pieces of wisdom I've ever heard out of anybody. So I'm going to throw that back onto you. I think you beat that bear on this one. And I think any guitarist or musician or person out there who listens to it could do nothing but agree with that, honestly. I mean, it is beyond special. And I don't even know if yet you have truly looked back and realized what this piece of music is, but I think that's a skill set I have. I think I can see that in things, not just music, but in things in business and in life. I have that sixth sense, and this is one of those things. God's honest truth, it is. Do you have a favorite on it?
Oh, let's see. I would say, well, I really like Blues for Rabbit. The Rabbit is Johnny Hodges, who's the sax player from Duke Ellington.
Yeah.
And I went on this blues mission about, I don't know how long ago, 6, 8, 10 years, however long it's been, where I wanted to be able to play like a minimal blues solo, like 2 notes per chord or something, and just pick the right 2 notes. And really, because
so kind of the opposite of what you had learned all of your life throughout.
Yeah. And it was really a daunting assignment to give myself. I wasn't happy with the result. I would try and I would fail and the bear would win, and so I started to search for people to listen to. And of course, there's the usual list of the great blues guitar players to listen to, but what I was finding is there's a lot of overlap, not just with them but with me, of like there's there's what the instrument does. We as guitar players we can't help but be influenced by what our instrument makes possible,
right?
And it's just a certain way it's laid out, and everybody's got their voice, but there's a lot of similarities as well. And so I started to listen to horn players, and I just went back, tried to find blues like straight ahead, nothing tricky, real straight ahead blues, but with jazz horn players, because I wanted to see what they would do. And the first thing I found was I didn't want to listen to any of the fast guys, because I want to know the guys that play the 2 good notes.
Right.
And Johnny Hodges was like the man. Like everything he played was a melody.
Right.
And not only was it, and melody is a composition. That's like that's the what. It answers the question what. But but he also answered the question how. Because the style and the way that he treated that melody and the elements of expression that he had were so astoundingly beautiful and emotional and moving that I was like, I just put in a lot of time listening to him and trying to play some of his stuff, and it's so different. I mean, you hear it and it sounds really simple. It's beautiful, but there's nothing complicated until you try to play it on the guitar, and you're just like, I can't even play 2 notes.
Right, it's backwards, yeah.
And so, that was, I started to try to get closer to that and just get that sound in my ears of what he did. And Blues for Rabbit was sort of like my take on what I got from spending time listening and studying Johnny Hodges. His nickname was Rabbit.
What I really like about Blues for Rabbit, and what I like about a lot of your style, that I'm starting to get more familiar with, especially the more we talk and that we go back and forth with little licks and stuff. You take the surface simple, what is comfortable to listen to, and this is where my wheelhouse is. in my head anyway. But you dive below that surface and you find out why you are a virtuoso. You find out all of the nuance that it takes to come across that simple, to come across that melodic and that sonically comfortable for someone to listen to it and go, oh, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And it's like, okay, I've heard that a million times. But you break it down and you go, wait a sec, that's muted, that sings, that's rolled, that's hammered, and if it wasn't exactly, and it's his own. And Blues for Rabbit to me is just, it's the blues you're expecting, and then it's Paul Gilbert doing it with his, just the extra spices on there. And I love it so much. That one, like I said, emotionally doesn't hit me as hard as the other two. And I've been emotional with this album so far, but I'm going to get past that. And there's a couple of them melodically that are starting to come up to me for the guitar part and the melody. You know, Having It, that little FE kick you do in Having It, that solo over that's my home right there. But anyway.
Oh yeah, Having It, I really like too. And the melodic ones like Let That Battery Die. That one's just a blast to play because it's.
What's it about?
Let That Battery Die. Well, I actually wrote that as a Mr. Big song because we were doing the last studio record we did. We were writing for it, and I wrote it as a vocal song. I'm trying to remember. I kind of had the idea of like your cell phone dying.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
And just going like, fine, like there's life beyond that.
Like, in other words, I need to take 5 minutes and just let that battery die and sit here and live.
Yeah, rather than like panic, I got to charge it up. Like,
yeah, that's what I got. I almost got like, especially after watching your special with Emmy, I almost got, because she seems to have that kind of, that pure center, and you're that musician, I got to charge, I got to go finish this. And I almost kind of just picture going, hey, let that battery die. Come here, just calm down. And that's what it does for me. That's what it does for me in my soul. And guys, again, I want to tell my audience, I haven't said it the whole time. Click the subscribe, please. Do all the normal stuff. I don't care about all that. We got Paul Gilbert. But what I do want my audience to know is this. All of these songs that we're talking about, Behold Electric Guitar, there's going to be links to it. This is a masterpiece. This is a mandatory piece of music for anyone who even cares about music on any level. Guitar players, if you don't go get this and listen to it, you don't know what you're missing. Everybody else out there, ditto times 10. I want to kind of just ask, one thing here that interests me about this, and I think we'll wrap with this and kind of talk a little bit more about your teaching. Because of the way that you go about, I've heard you say before that, like when you're young, your creative process can be an entire song. You wake up, you're John Lennon, and you wake up and you go, oh, I think I'll write, tomorrow, whatever, or yesterday rather. But anyway, now you wake up and you might get a piece, you might get a lick, you stitch those together. It's like a tapestry. That's what I do as well. When you go to sit down and decide, I'm going to do it, because I am doing the same thing right now. This inspired me to do a 10-song instrumental album.
Oh, right on.
So I'm going to try to achieve as close as I can get to doing the same thing, to finding the best musicians that I can. A lot of it I'm going to play myself and structure, and how good of sounds can I make now? With the capabilities out there, we can almost make as good of stuff as we made back then in the studio that we had to, covet and only get minutes in. So what moves you? What makes you get inspired to sit down and say, you know what, I'm going to put another project together. I'm going to sit down and write this or do that?
Oh, let's see. I guess it's just no answers coming to my head right away. And I've had the good fortune of being interviewed a fair amount, and I realize sometimes I don't know the answer to the question. It's to me, and like an album is always really daunting. It's full of fear and self-doubt and going I don't know if I can, because what happens if I've done a lot of albums in the past, and I'm really happy with how a lot of them turned out, and they were the best that a younger version of myself could do. So in a way, I feel that competitiveness, can I compete with the most energy I could ever put out when I was 22 years old. I'm competing with that guy. That's rough, you know. But fortunately, you know, it's not just a matter of athleticism or it's not a competition. It's more like communication and a connection. And so that's kind of what I have to figure out is like what do I feel that I can say in terms of playing or writing that is going to that's going to mean something when I perform it for an audience, or going to mean something when I play it with and then actually I've got the answer, and this is absolutely the best answer. When I did Behold Electric Guitar, I done this on other records too. I find a collaborator. And so, like, I had Roland, who played the bass. I had him come out early, and I you know, everybody else, I kind of like went in the studio and I just show them the songs that day, or we rehearse a little bit. I mean, the drummer, because the drummers had to learn it that day because they were, you know, didn't expect to be hired on the spot.
Right.
But minimal rehearsal with everybody, you know, except for Roland. Roland came in about 2 or 3 weeks early, and we would just run through my ideas, and just the fact that another human being is there, and I can get a sense of if they're enjoying playing this music.
Right.
And to me, that's all the collaboration I need. I don't really necessarily want a co-writer. You know, I don't want somebody to say like, oh, here, use this part. I don't need ideas. I just need in a way, it's like an audience. I need like a sentient being to that I can see, like, is this moving them or is it not? Because sometimes it's hard.
Just from watching the videos, he so looks like somebody I want to hang out with.
Yeah, well,
the bass player.
I mean, every Roland and everybody was great, but I mean, on other albums I've done that too. When I did like Silence Followed by Deafening Roar, I had Jeff Bowders, who's the drummer that played on that record. I had him come over every day at 5 p.m. and that having that deadline, like I know he's going to come at 5 p.m. I got to have something ready. And he was my audience, and he was the person, you know, I just get a sense like, is he digging this? And it's sort of safe because, you know, if he doesn't dig it, you know, I'm not going to get publicly shamed. All I know is like, oh, maybe I'm not going to use that idea. So it's you know, it's a nice place where you can test things out, see if they work, and that makes it so much easier than just like you're by yourself, and you know, I mean, I could do an album by myself with nobody listening. I could get it done, but it would be hard, and it'd be a lot less inspired, and it would take a lot longer. And you put one other human being in the mix, and it just flows. You know, it's just like, okay, well, they seem to be digging it, so let's keep going. You know.
The Bear. Anything else you'd like to tell our people? Anything else as we wrap up? And if nothing else, I would like you to say something with that there purple thing in your hand before we go.
Yeah.
And give them some Paul Gilbert fire.
Oh, well, it's funny from you know, having the shred label. That happens. Like, you know, you go on TV, you talk for half an hour, and then they go like, okay, now do the thing. And, it's like,
your hands are
cold. The thing that I've learned is that, like, build up to it. You know?
Yeah.
So usually what I do, I just try to pick a key and a groove, and that's what I do with my students too. Like everything's, you know, we pick a key and a groove, put them together, you get a groove. And I'm gonna make it easy on myself and do A. And let's see, what's a good groove in A? I'm gonna put a little swing to it. You know. I didn't mean that note, my apologies. That one I meant. All right, got most of them.
Mr. Paul Gilbert, I am telling you right now, sir, you are definitely my favorite guitarist right now, hands down, and I think you should be everybody's favorite guitarist in the entire world. So people, go get Behold Electric Guitar. Thanks so much, buddy.
Thank you. Right on.